Colleagues, it's with great honor that I stand before you today to welcome a shero to our chambers, a daughter of South Central LA and a proud product of Pueblo del Rio. We are honoring today Dr. Shirley Nash Weber. That's right, give it up. She certainly solidified her place in history as the first Black Secretary of State. But her story begins in Hope, Arkansas, during the Jim Crow era. Dr. Weber and her family's journey is one of triumph over adversity, and it serves as a powerful testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Fleeing the South after her father was threatened by a lynch mob, the family sacrificed and was defined really by their fortitude and perseverance. Dr. Weber's early years were shaped by a multitude of diverse experiences she encountered while growing up in Council District 9. She attended Trinity Avenue Elementary School, Holmes Avenue Elementary School, John Adams Middle School, and Manual Arts High. These schools not only provided her with an education, but life experiences helped mold her into the fearless and compassionate leader she is today. This morning she returns home as one of South Central's greatest champions. And we celebrate the homecoming of an undeniable force who has emerged from the streets of South LA to the epitome showing strength and grit. Amongst challenges, Dr. Weber refused to let the words can't or won't take root in her vocabulary, always nurturing hope and maintaining belief in her ability to achieve greatness. By the age of 26, this daughter of a sharecropper had already earned 3 degrees, a BA, MA, and a PhD, all from UCLA, by the time she was 26. This formidable feat reminds us of Dr. Weber's unbreakable commitment to education and her dedication to excellence and the pursuit of personal growth. In the early 1970s, she achieved the distinction of becoming one of the youngest professors at San Diego State University. During her tenure there, she not only founded the Department of Africana Studies, but was also president of the National Council for Black Studies and executive director of San Diego's Association of African American Educators. In all, Dr. Weber devoted more than 4 decades to teaching at one of our country's most respected educational institutions. The world of politics would soon come calling, and Dr. Weber was ready to answer. First, as a member of the San Diego Board of Education, and then a member of the California State Assembly. I remember those days. I was chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, in fact, and getting Shirley Weber elected was our main priority. In 2012, she didn't disappoint us. In fact, she etched her name in history as the first African American to represent a district in San Diego County in the state legislature. Through subsequent re-elections in 2014, 2016, and 2020, Dr. Weber assumed influential leadership roles chairing committees such as the Assembly Budget Committee and the Assembly Elections and Redistricting Committee. Additionally, she would lend her knowledge and passion as a member of the committees focusing on education, elections, banking, and finance. Dr. Weber's advocacy extended to expanding voting rights for individuals on parole and fighting for police accountability. And she earned a reputation as an unparalleled voice for education, equity, and racial justice, not just in the Capitol, but throughout the state. As we enter into a crucial election year, Dr. Weber's role as Secretary of State is paramount to ensuring the protection of our democracy. Over the past few years, Dr. Weber has made significant progress in expanding voter education and outreach, and has worked to ensure that California serves as a model for how we exercise our civic responsibilities. Her efforts include launching the More Days, More Ways to Vote initiative, as well as implementing voting centers and/or drop boxes across UC campuses. Dr. Weber has also established an ambassador program focused on increasing the awareness of voting options. And she has prioritized election security to counter harmful election misinformation, securing more than $60 million in funding to assist counties with elections for this year. In short, Dr. Weber has made it her mission as Secretary of State to ensure that every eligible voter understands the importance of their voices by participating in elections. Because as we all know too much, each vote counts. Colleagues, I'd now like to invite our Council President Pro Tem, Marquise Harris Dawson, to make a few remarks. You'll wait? Okay, then let's have my colleague, Heather Hutt.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Price. It brings me great honor today to speak about Dr. Shirley Weber. She's an extraordinary woman who's made history, and she really continues to inspire us all. As we stand here today in February for Black History Month, it's amazing to celebrate someone whose achievements break down barriers and inspires so many young people, particularly women. Dr. Weber, you're a role model. You show us that any dream is possible with hard work and dedication. You have strengthened our democracy by inspiring others to get involved in their community, and you made it easier for us to vote. Like, there's no excuses, right? It comes in the mail. You have taught us if they don't have a seat at the table for us, bring our own chair. And when we want to do the work, all we have to do is show up and bring our best thoughts and our wisdom. Shirley Weber Day it's truly a privilege, not just because we get to celebrate a remarkable individual, but a historic moment for our city. Today, honoring you, we're celebrating a powerful symbol of progress and inclusion. We're incredibly fortunate to have you as a leader, and I'm excited to see the way that you will continue to make positive impact for years to come. Thank you so much for your service, and congratulations.
Thank you, Councilmember Hutt. Now we want to introduce another formidable beacon of strength and women's empowerment in our community, Pastor Thembalika Smart, the distinguished leader at the Christian Liberation Ministries. Pastor Smart.
Peace and blessings, everyone. In honor of Dr. Shirley Weber, I would like to say the South African national anthem in part, because it is the red carpet of Nelson and Winnie Mandela, and I really feel that our sister, Dr. Weber, walks in that light. Inkosi sekeleli Africa, bayu pakari su pandawai yamo, izwa ime tande zoye tu, kosi sikele ya, kosi sikele ya. We are here to honor a queen in our queen and kingdom. There are always elected voices for the season that we're in. Those who are chosen from birth to take the people like the promise of Joshua and Caleb, Harriet and Sojourner, Ida B. and Fannie Lou, Coretta and Rosa, Sheba and Hatshepsut. Those chosen vessels like Dr. Shirley Weber do more than their required assignment. They go way beyond their purpose. God is always going to provide us a leader. Amen? Amen. In Swahili, it is called the Kiongozi. The Kiongozi. The Kiongozi. Our devoted leader, one who does not give up on the plan or the purpose. I would liken Dr. Weber to Hatshepsut, who was only the third woman to become pharaoh in 3,000 years of ancient Egyptian history, and the first to attain the full power of her position. What we need to know about women Kongozas, Dr. Shirley Weber, and what they do to advance community to the new era and to new levels, is that they do what they do and what white patriarchy cannot do. That is to lead community from a place of the heart, from a place of knowing, and from a place of understanding. What she does, Dr. Shirley Weber, is a farming technique. You heard in her bio that she was from farming background. Well, she uses that farming technique as she gracefully plants wherever her feet land, then cultivates the seeds that she plants with the watering of education, policy, procedure, and action. This is her life. Her testimony is action and has built and cultivated a Sankofa tradition, a great return wherever she is, planting seeds of culture and community. Not only does she represent the garden of what womanhood is, which is nurturing, care, tenacity, fortitude, and strength, but she represents the fabric of America itself. She is what happens when freedom, equality, and opportunity materialize. And in the tradition of our great ancestors, we say to you, Dr. Shirley Weber, Asante Sana. We say great thanks for nurturing us while we progress forward, for encouraging us to get free while we're running north, making sure that nobody is left behind, protecting the rights of voting and freedom, forging forward and making sure that nobody gets left behind by teaching, educating, building, and empowering. It is my great belief that there might be 2 presidents coming out of Hope, Arkansas. Right. God bless.
Thank you, Pastor, for those inspiring words. We know Dr. Weber has consistently prioritized education throughout her life, from her own childhood to her tenure in the state legislature. As a proud graduate holding 3 degrees from UCLA, we could not have today's presentation be complete without the presence of her alma mater. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Paco Retena, who is the president-elect of the UCLA Alumni Association. Paco?
Thank you. Ashe, Dr. Weber. Good morning, City Council members, staff, and community members. My name is Paco Retana. I'm the president-elect of the UCLA Alumni Association. And on behalf of the UCLA Alumni Association and the entire UCLA community, I'm honored to recognize a triple Bruin.
Triple.
Did you hear that? A triple Bruin in the Honorable Madam Secretary. Secretary Weber has been a fighter for equity and the California Secretary of State. She continues to advocate for diversity and inclusion for education and to ensure every vote counts. Her family resided in the Pueblo del Rio public housing community in South LA, where she was instilled with the belief that education was vital to succeed. Weber took this message to heart. She traveled back and forth from the neighborhood of South LA to Westwood, where she attended UCLA. As you've already heard, by the age of 26, she received not 1, but 2, but 3 degrees in communication. Inspired by UCLA professor to pursue her love of history, she went on to found the Department of Africana Studies at San Diego State University, where she taught for more than 40 years and continues to serve as a professor emeritus of African Studies. But it was when it was in politics that she found her final next calling, rising from a member of the California State Assembly to her present role as California Secretary of State, an office she assumed in January 2021. She is California's first Black Secretary of State and the 5th African to serve American to serve as a state constitutional officer in California's 173-year history. Dr. Weber was the first African American to serve as the chair of Assembly Budget Committee. She also served as member of the Standing Assembly Committee on Education, Higher Education, Elections, Budget, Banking, and Finance. Dr. Shirley Weber is a leader in higher education space, championing landmark legislation like AB 1460, which required all CSU students to enroll in all ethnic study classes such as Native American Studies, African American Studies, Asian American Studies, or Latinx Studies, including making sure that there were voting centers on our UC campuses. This bill led the way for ethnic studies efforts such as AB 101, which requires California high school students to offer ethnic study courses starting in 2025. Dr. Shirley Weber's work as an educator, assembly member resulted in formally integrating culturally competency education in our public schools. Secretary Weber is a true champion of public higher education. We owe her a debt of gratitude for looking out for our next generation of scholars. On behalf of the UCLA, congratulations, Madam Secretary. Go Bruins.
Thank you, Mr. President-elect. Okay. As we previously mentioned, in the 50s, Dr. Weber and her family put down roots in the Pueblo del Rio housing projects. She was certainly a true product of our community and always an integral part of that block. It's my pleasure to introduce you to another local hero, Police Officer Renita James, who proudly serves as a member of the Community Safety Partnership Program at Pueblo del Rio housing projects. Officer?
Good morning, and thank you for a moment of your time. I stand here with a soul full of gratitude and admiration for this opportunity to speak before you today. I am here not only to represent my department, Council District Number 9, but to also represent what transpires when you have a role model like Dr. Shirley Weber. Today, February 14, 2024, the income of a 4-person household in Pueblo del Rio is $30,000, which is below California's poverty line. Oftentimes, the communities are underserved and marginalized. Rewind now to a time where household incomes were lower, resources were few, crime was high, and every obstacle stacked against you. But let me tell you, she persevered. She is Dr. Weber. She is the first Black Secretary of State. Because of women like Dr. Weber, it has paved the way for women like myself, who come from various backgrounds with minimum resources, but a big dream. Dr. Weber, because of your work, I'm able to patrol the community of Pueblo del Rio and rebuild that trust and respect that we all want and need. I do these by implementing our 5 pillars for community safety partnership, which includes community engagement, wraparound programs, public safety, safe passages, and enhancing community capacity. Seeing your work in every room you step in has enhanced community capacity, not only for the youth of Pueblo del Rio, but for every young person that might not come from the perfect background or upbringing. Because of this, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Shirley Nash Weber, a pioneer, a visionary, a tireless advocate for the people of the Golden State, an esteemed friend, Dr. Weber.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you, to our council chair. It's good to be in front of you. Thank you so very much for the courtesy of addressing the group. To my great colleague, Karen Price, who was helpful when I was running for the assembly and pushed me forward, gave me support, came down to help campaign for me, and he has always been a great support for me and for the people of California. When he ran for the assembly, I was really proud of the fact that he was going to represent the 9th District. I didn't know the numbers, but I knew that I lived in that place. And I was pleased because that with the new 9th, he is revitalizing a community that I grew up in that gave me so much support and so much attention in life. I am truly the product of proud parents who believed in me despite all of the things that happened in their life. You heard of my father, who had to come to Los Angeles very suddenly because they threatened his life. And he was threatened because he stood up for himself at the way station. He was a sharecropper. And it was traditional that African Americans would be cheated and not paid true wages. But he fought back. And he fought physically with them, and everyone knew that that was a kiss of death. He was a man of 6 with 6 children. We lived in a 2-room shack. I was born in a 2-room shack near the railroad tracks, my sisters tell me. And my father still had courage. He still had perseverance, and he fought back. They didn't know that I had a grandmother living in Los Angeles. My mother's mother had come here many years before. And so when the word got around that they were going to lynch my father that evening, his brothers put him in the bed of a wagon and took him out of Hope to Texarkana, where he got on a train and came to Los Angeles. For the next 3 months, my family was taunted because obviously they assumed that the traditional things that happen when black men run off and leave, quote unquote, leave their families, that we would remain there. But they didn't know that there was a plan in place with my grandmother and my uncle, who was living in Los Angeles. And so 3 months later, on December 1, 1951, a train pulled into LA Station, and on it was my mother and her 6 children. We stayed in a one-room bedroom with my grandmother for several months before we moved to a 2-bedroom place on Trinity, and eventually realized that the Pueblos were being built. And we were excited because it was a home finally. 4 bedrooms, a living room, an eating area, and a kitchen. And that place stands today because of the cinder blocks it was built on. Nothing can touch the Pueblos. And so I came out of that experience, and normally when you add and subtract those experiences, the father who can only write his name, who's not illiterate because they would not let him go to school past the time he was 9 or 10 years old. When you have those kind of data that's there, and my mother never got a chance to finish high school. Generally, we know what happens in big cities when you come. You get lost, you get consumed, and it takes away all that you have. But my parents and my grandmother and my uncle were determined that that would not happen to us, as well as my family that was in Arkansas, the matriarch of the family, Addie Nash. She made sure that we were cared for, that we knew we had family, and there would always be someone to intervene and to help where possible. They made a determination that my mother would not work, that they would help in any way they could because they knew what happened when a mother and a father both leave the home in a difficult situation like the Pueblos. So we persevered. We survived. My father made a commitment to us, and I say these things because as people talk about how you get to where you are, people assume that I have all this resources that I have now that I didn't have as a kid. I didn't know where Ladera was and Baldwin Hills. I knew none of those places. I knew the Pueblos, you know. I knew that walk to the school every day, and I knew the neighborhood around it. But I had family that cared about me, and they took care of us, and they shielded us from the outside. But in addition to that, I went to Holmes Avenue Elementary School. It had just opened. The backdrop was, I think, Quaker Oats and 7-Up, 2 factories that basically butted up against the playground. So all we saw was this huge mountain behind us. But we didn't know that that mountain would provide us with the kind of support that we needed to grow in Los Angeles. I never missed a symphony. I never missed an opera when I was in elementary school. I loved the opera. I loved seeing the Hansel and Gretel push the witch into the oven and watch it blow up as a kid. I say this because we have so many resources that are seldom put into places where they are so needed. And we may not understand what is happening with a child at that moment, but these are images that I still have some 60 years, 70 years later. I still have these images of what it was to go to the symphony and what it was to see an opera and what it was to be included and what it was for Quaker Oats and 7-Up to pay our way into Disneyland, as expensive as it is. And so all of those things were part of me, part of my world, shaped me. And I say that to you because as you're looking at what you do, make sure you don't forget that kid who doesn't have anything. Make sure you understand that family is important. My father came home every night from work. He had his paycheck every Friday, and he never spent a nickel or dime on anything wasteful. He had one suit to go to weddings and to go to funerals and to go to his Mason meeting. He never spent his money on frivolous things. His goal was to make sure that his children, his 8 children, survived. And we all did. And we all did well in life because that was my daddy's dream and my mother's commitment to the family. I say this because there's no magic to how you get from the Pueblos to the capital. There's no magic to it. Yes, there's hard work and dedication, but the government also has a role to play and the community has a role to play. You know, I went to UCLA, 3 degrees from UCLA, because it was the best deal in town. I had worked to get there. But when I graduated with my PhD, I owed $1,250. $1,250. And so people wonder why I fight so hard to keep tuition down for kids and those kinds of things, because that was my opportunity. That was the investment that California made in me, and I continue to make that investment in California. So when we talk about how do you get here, you get here because there's a whole lot of folks in your family. My brothers and sisters are here with me today who have never been angry about me going to school and have always been my greatest cheerleaders. But it is that kind of support that sustains us. And I will not forget the community. I will not forget Figueroa Church of Christ, ever, because they helped me as a young, poor kid in that church who had some wealthy folks there. I went to youth conferences all across the nation. I learned to speak at the church. I learned to make presentations in the church. I learned how to organize their first food dinner at the church. They encouraged me as a 15-year-old to do that because I wanted to feed the homeless. And the church helped me to do that. They sent me all across the nation to represent the church at conferences, youth conferences every summer, that I had ended up with a great array of friends and colleagues, but I also learned to speak. And they fought every step of the way, and they never forgot me. When I went to UCLA, they were always there. There was never an award that I got in high school, elementary school, or college that they did not publicize in their bulletin, that they did not announce on Sunday morning. And when I went back recently, having been moved out of Los Angeles now for 50 years, when I went back to church last year to thank them for their role in me becoming Secretary of State, it was like I left yesterday. I was still their child. I was still their proud individual. And I think these are things that are really important when you start talking about how do you help young people grow and develop? How do you help families, have fathers stay in the homes to work with their children? How do you as a community and as a church develop a youth program that is so powerful and so strong that it basically intervenes with all the negative things that happen in the world? This takes charge. Your role in your church, your youth programs, your travels, your conferences, the choir that I sang in, the album that we made as 20-year-olds and sold and drove across the country to sing gospel music. It is important that you understand that. I am a product of Los Angeles. I say that every day because there are many things I learned in Los Angeles I couldn't have learned anywhere else. The large churches, the large gatherings, the large events that I learned to organize, all came from this community, from the Ninth and from Los Angeles itself. And so I stand before you as a proud person, and I thank you for what you've done for me. I thank Los Angeles. I thank California for developing the best educational system in the world that poor people can afford. I thank you for that. But I also say we have to continue to do it. Continue to do it. I help young people understand and parents understand that my parents knew very little, but they knew that they loved me. They knew that if they put their energy into it, it could happen. And my father constantly made a commitment to me from the old blues song that if you want to go to school, I'll drink muddy water and sleep in a hollow log. And he meant that. And so my goal was to never have him drink muddy water or sleep in a hollow log just to get me through school. So I thank you today for calling me to be the proud daughter of the 79th district, 9th district. 79th was my assembly district. And I'm a proud product of that as well. But I've always lived close to the 9th in my heart and in my presence. Even in in San Diego, I live in the community of need. I can live anywhere I want to live. But I choose the community of need because I know that the role models that come in those communities and who live in those communities inspire the children and the families that they can do so much more. I am honored to be with you today. I'm honored to have my family, my sisters, my brother who's here with me, and my son who's sitting on the front row with me. My daughter could not be here because she now is the assemblywoman of the 79th, and she's in committee meetings. And so I'm honored to be with you today and with my friends from Phi Delta Kappa, my church members. My staff is here from Sacramento. Many of them flew in because they wanted to be here. I have an amazing staff who believes in what we believe, that we can build a state and a nation that we can be proud of, and that voting is critical. My father and mother believed so much in voting, so much so that our house at 351 West 45th Street was a polling place in our living room. And when I was in middle school, I'd walk down the driveway on elections day because I knew important things were happening in the living room. And I'd have to go through the back door. And my mother basically served as a poll leader until she passed away. And I think the election was a couple of weeks before that, and they had to move it. But she always opened our house, and they were proud of the fact that they could basically participate in this. My only regret in life is that my parents are not here to see what they made, see the contributions they made, not just to my life, but to the life of California. And I always pay tribute to them because I know that had I had any other parents, it would have been a challenge. It would have been difficult because they committed themselves to all of us to be healthy, to be safe, to be respectful, and to be independent in terms of working, but equally important, to give back all that we have to make sure that our space in this world is better. Thank you, Kern Price. Thank you so much, City Council. I appreciate being here with you today, and I'm honored to be the proud daughter of the 9th.
Thank you, Dr. Shirley Weber. It's fitting that we honor you on Valentine's Day. Your legacy is characterized by a commitment to equity and justice, and we love you for it. It's for that and a million other reasons that today we celebrate February the 14th as Dr. Shirley N. Weber Day in the city of Los Angeles.
Thank you so much. Wow, named after me. I've had people looking for me on special days. It's amazing. Thank you so much.
And as you all are taking photos, I just want to personally thank you, Madam Secretary, Dr. Weber, for reminding us this morning why we all get up and do this work, why we struggle to build a kind of city where young people can grow and realize their full potential and contribute. And so thank you for everything that you have done. And I also want to make a note that I'm happy to know that you're going to be in office in November. This is perhaps the most contentious election, not in terms of it being close or a wide gap, but this is one of the first elections that we've had in this country where there's a very real, credible threat of violence associated with this coming election. And the attempt to stop processes, to break up meetings, to stop business, that's happened in this building that you're in now. The attempt to take away the franchise of the vote is as fierce as it's been in the history of this country. And I can't think of a better place, a better person to have at the wheel as we guide our society through this stage that we're in. I want to call a couple colleagues while you're there. So maybe somebody wants to hold the shirt and the flowers because we're going to get some speeches now. Councilmember De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Shirley, Dr. Weber, Madam Secretary of State, it is an honor and pleasure to see you here today and to declare in the great city of Los Angeles, your hometown, Shirley Weber Day. Now, we've had the distinct pleasure to work with each other, and I can tell you all of this, when Shirley would get upset, because there was some trouble with this bill or that bill, and there was this woman walking very briskly from the green carpet over to the red carpet, my staff would warn me, Ms. Weber's looking for you. And I would turn around the other way and start walking in a different way. But because you were passionate and committed to what you believe in, which has always been an incredible source of inspiration of who you are and what you do. Now, Mr. President right now just mentioned a few moments ago that thank God that you are the Secretary of State for the state of California. Quite frankly, I wish you were the Secretary of State concurrently with the state of Georgia as well too, and some other red states throughout the country at the same time to make sure that we protect the integrity of the democratic vote regardless of who you are and regardless of where you come from. Let me say this, because you don't know this. You were a source of inspiration for me on a decision that I made for the well-being of the Senate institution. And it was mentioned a few moments ago, I don't know if it was Brother Curran, because I remember Brother Curran coming to me when you were running in the 79th down in San Diego to ask for support of your candidacy for the California State Assembly. But you won, I supported, you became a member of the Assembly, but you were a source of inspiration on another issue. Because I made the decision to appoint, well-deserved, the first black woman in the history of the California State Senate since the founding of the state of California, to be the chairperson, the chairwoman of the Budget Committee. And that was a very consequential decision that I made, because historically, and I think that a handful of colleagues here that served in the Assembly as well as the Senate can testify that historically, if a person of color, whether you're African American or Latino in particular, committees or chairmanships that we would have would be about social service programs, which are important, or foster care, which are important, or GO, the ponies, the casinos, the gambling, but never the Budget Committee, dealing with the UCs and the Cal States and the prison systems. We're talking about everything, not a subcommittee. And when you were appointed to be the chairwoman of the Assembly Budget Committee of the California State Assembly, that was, quite frankly, revolutionary, because it never had been done before on the green carpet. I was yet to be the leader of the California State Senate, but it wasn't lost on me that I made a mental note. And then when the time came, and I had a very smart folks who wanted that position, chair committee, very talented individuals. You know, ultimately at the end of the day, it was Holly Mitchell, based on her acumen, based on her passion, based on all the skills and talents that she brought. But you, my friend Shirley Weber, were partially inspirational and motivational for her to become the first black woman to chair the Budget Committee in the California State Senate since the founding of the state of California. So you have influenced a lot more folks than you think. Not just as Assemblywoman, not just, you know, as a professor, not just as Secretary of State, but in many different ways. I thank you, for being, not too long ago we had Congressman Diane Watson here, and in the same cut of the cloth, strong, powerful, independent black woman that you are. We thank you for who you are and what you mean to the state of California. We appreciate you because you're both a Bruin, and I just heard a triple Bruin, but you're also an Aztec as well. And we share those roots from San Diego, so God bless you, and thank you, Shirley, for who you are. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilmember Blumenfield.
Thank you. Dr. Weber, it's so good to see you here today. I got to know you first when I was in my last year in the Assembly and you were coming in, and then we share that, as Kevin mentioned, the budget committee. You were the budget chair after I was the budget chair, and so we have that long history together. And I just have so much respect for you, the amazing work that you have done and you continue to do. I'm just thrilled to be part of this. You are on the cutting edge of protecting our democracy right now, and that is no small task, and it is one that you are up to, and I sleep better at night knowing you are in that role. But you've also, throughout your years in the Assembly, you've just done so much. You were focusing, education and dealing with it, not being scared to take on institutional forces and really making things happen. You really have made California a better place in so many ways. All of us here in Los Angeles are better for it and grateful for it, and so congratulations on Shirley Weber Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Let's give another big round of applause to our honoree, Dr. Shirley Weber.